Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here on the Juicy Living Tour. I was in Europe. I'm now in Hawaii. Had to come back to this beautiful land and see you, Faith. Good to see you again.
Welcome home. Aloha.
Thank you. It's so beautiful, especially on this part of the island. And I so missed this beautiful vibration. There's something magical about this island, its beauty, its soul even.
It is. It really is. It actually is considered the pineal gland. All the Hawaiian islands are a different chakra in the body, and Kauai is the pineal gland. So it opens up your third eye and just really allows you to have experiences that are so magical. So this is why I love it here.
And this is a particular special spot for you here on this island.
Yes, it is. It actually, we're located on a ley line, okay, that goes from the ocean all the way up here. There's sacred heiaus, which heiaus are the prayer centers that the ancients used, all the way up to where the royalty used to live up here, high in the mountains. And behind us is Mount Waialeale, is my favorite mountain, and it's the heart. It's the heart of Lemuria, and so it's very special to live here. Yes.
And you have created this beautiful space, this beautiful center called Shambhala here.
Yes, and Shambhala is really heaven on earth, and it really is the original Garden of Eden here. And so we are so fortunate and very blessed to have this experience. Yes.
We're really going to speak here, I feel, about life, about our path, and how we're really all on the spiritual path, whether we know it or not. You went through some turbulent times. You went through some ups and downs. You even had your big highs with the Oprah Winfrey show, being on there and knowing success, and before that knowing bankruptcy. Can you tell us about all these kind of waves that you had to go through to find yourself in this place right now and feel so blessed, and are blessed? You're blessed.
Yes. Well, and now I found out all of it was blessings. At the time, I didn't think that they really were, because I actually was I was in a marriage that actually didn't work out, and so I got divorced, and then shortly after I went bankrupt, and then I became homeless, and I really lost everything. I lost my identity of who I thought I was. But back in 1986, I actually, with the first time I ever saw Oprah, I said, I'm going to be on her show someday. My intuition told me that, but at the time I didn't have any talents or anything that I thought I could be on TV for. So actually, when I went through all my experience, and then I said, wow, if I was that powerful to create this big of a mess in my life where I was homeless and bankrupt and I had just lost everything, I thought, just imagine if I turned it around and put it towards the positive, what I could create. And that's when I set my intentions, and I ended up being on Oprah for my book, Success 2000, moving into the millennium with purpose, power, and prosperity. And so that's how I ended up. And an interesting note about the Oprah experience that I found was so magical, because once I decided to go live my dream and really pursue writing a book, because I had no background or talent in it at all, what I found is all these miracles started happening, because actually I never contacted the Oprah show for them to even call me to be on. They called me on April Fool's Day, and they said, this is Candy Emelon from the Oprah Winfrey Show. Do you want to be on my show? And I said, I thought it was maybe one of my friends playing a joke on me. And so I said, well, I'll have to check my schedule and call you back. And so actually I did call them. She probably thought, who's this lady doing that? But
check my schedule.
Yeah,
the Oprah Winfrey Show, bring it on.
Exactly. So I called back and said, yes, I would be on it. And one of the things that makes it really profound for me is it was facing one of my deepest fears in life of speaking in front of people. But I thought at the time that, well, it's taped and it's edited, so if something went wrong, that I could, fix it, or they would fix it. And I actually get there that day, and this is the only day of the entire year that they went live. And so they came to me right beforehand and said, okay, you're live in front of 10 million people. How do you feel about that? And so the thing I learned about life is that once you have committed to really knowing the truth of who you are, your biggest fears will be exposed. And so I had to face that fear that I had since I was a little girl, when I was made fun of for giving a book report. And I had to face that. And that day was a turning point for me. And it was
And a lot of healing started taking place around that.
absolutely, because it was even more magical than I could have ever dreamt of. And when you turn it over, because I was so nervous that day that I just said, okay, higher self, take over. I cannot do this of my own. And so when I did that, everything just flowed, and it was just really a magical experience.
And then it was flowing so much that then you had to, what? Because I guess sometimes we wish for some things, but we're not really realizing how big it's going to be. Yeah. Did you get scared by that?
Well, I didn't get scared by it, but something didn't feel right. I was, on the Today Show a couple times, CNN, all kinds of hundreds of radio programs and TV all over the country. And I started feeling like everybody else was running the show, and it ended up that I said, I feel called now to go write a book about Lemuria, because back in the early 90s, I had a dream one night, and this man came to me in my dream, and he held my face really softly with his hands, and he looked really deep in my eyes and said, "Don't you remember who you are?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "You are Lemurian." And I woke up, and it was so profound. And so we didn't have Google back then, so I didn't know where to look to find out about what Lemurian even was. So I looked it up in the encyclopedia, and it just said lemurs. And I said, "What is this?" So I would ask everybody, "Well, do you know about it? Do you know about it?" Nobody knew about it. So finally, somebody said, "I think Edgar Cayce wrote about Lemuria." And that really scared me, because it was like, oh my God, you mean there actually is a place called Lemuria, or there's something called Lemuria, and I dreamt of it. So it scared me, but it excited me. And so I read his books, and it led me on a journey to, like, I was living the Celestine prophecy before it actually even came out as a book. All the little pieces of the puzzle started to fit together, and so I got this calling. I was supposed to go write a book about Lemuria, and my agents were not happy. I had to let go of the agents and all the people that were invested in my career as a life coach, and say, no, this is the path that I need to go on. And so I ended up writing this book about Lemuria, and then I was led to take a sabbatical. And this sabbatical I thought would be...
What do you mean being led to?
Well, once I turned my life over to listening to the divine creation, the inner voice speaks to you, and you have to get quiet enough to listen to that voice. And I would meditate, but also, I don't actually just meditate. It's really just being in nature or listening and quieting the mind, that I kept hearing the voice as what to do next. And so the voice basically was saying to me, it's time for you to really know the truth of who you are.
And at the time you were not living here?
No, I was back in Chicago. And prior to that, I had a few other wake-up calls that I had one coming to me right when I went to bed at night. I had this being that was a light being that I felt was Jesus, but it didn't look like Jesus, like what our minds tell us Jesus looks like. It was a light body, and it came to me twice. The first time I didn't tell anybody, because I thought that they would think I was crazier than I already was, talking about Lemuria and everything else I was starting to remember and wake up. So I didn't say anything, but the second time, it was so powerful and so validating, because I just knew everything. It was like we communicated telepathically, and there were no words exchanged, but I just knew everything. And so I stopped doubting so much, okay, and started saying, okay, there's a bigger purpose here than I even realized. So that led me to take the sabbatical. And so I thought I would take my profit sharing money, and I would go away for 6 months and travel around the world and so forth. And actually, I cleared my schedule for that 6 months. I brought my daughter over to her dad's to stay, and everybody thought I was really losing my mind for even doing this, leaving at the peak of my career, okay? And so I did it anyways. And then the profit-sharing company said, we're sorry, but we cannot give you your money because the laws changed and we're doing it different now. So I said, well, what am I going to do? I don't have any money to live. And I canceled all my clients. And so I was faced with the very first experience of testing my faith. And
hence the name change.
Yes, hence the name change. I had to earn it. It wasn't given to me. I actually said, okay, you want to live by faith? I'm going to show you what that's like. Because before that, I had talked the talk. I read the books. I had the theory. I followed all of it, and I used to coach that way as well. But actually, this was putting me to the test of actually going out with not a dime in my pocket and saying, okay, so I was led to write this letter telling people that everybody that I knew that I was going on a sabbatical and would they support me in it. And this was in
asking for help. Whoa.
Yes. It was very humbling. Because like I said before, I had always had a very high-powered identity. I was a recruiter before that, very successful financially in everything I ever did. So to be in a situation to ask for help and also to help for money was extremely humbling to me. But the fear was so overwhelming that when I went and I sent out all the letters that to mail to people, my legs were shaking. I felt like I was a little deer. And I put them in the mailbox and I said, okay, I'm letting go. And the response I got was not what I had hoped for, actually. It really triggered a lot of people. I lost really all of my friends in my family through that because they really thought that I had lost my mind. And why was I doing this? And people wrote me back, I'm not going to pay for you to go have a vacation. And it brought up all their money issues. And so I was really perplexed, like, why was this happening when I, showed all this courage to do this and have this? Well, I soon found out that actually it was really key that everything was taken out of my life. Everything. Every person, every friend, my family, except for my daughters. And so I spent 6 months pretty much by myself. And it was extremely powerful experience. The first couple weeks, I was so in fear that I laid on my living room floor and I cried because I lost everything that I thought I was. My entire identity. I didn't know who I was anymore. And then a woman brought me this song from church that she had that said, I took everything away from you so you'd only turn to me. And like she was like an angel bringing me this, because she was like the only person that I saw at that time, because I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't have any friends left to talk to. And so to have that confirmation. And then another really cool miracle happened is I used to go into this coffee shop when I was writing my book. And so I went in there one day to get coffee and she's like, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. I said, well, I'm on sabbatical. And she's like, well, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm doing an inner sabbatical. And she's like, well, I thought people went places to do sabbaticals. I said, well, I'm doing it different. I'm going into an inner sabbatical. And so I had wanted to go to the hot springs because my body was crying out for minerals. And so that was one of the places that I had said I was going to go on my sabbatical. So anyway, she said, well, we're selling the coffee shop and I'm going to go bring my furniture over to my father-in-law's house. If you're not doing anything, you want to come with? He's in Arkansas. And I said, oh, really? I said, where? And she goes, Eureka Springs. I said, is that by hot springs? And she said, it's right next door. And I said, oh my God, yes. So, Eureka! Exactly, and it was, and that was, and then people started giving, like people I didn't even know, people who were friends of friends gave, and it was amazing, and I got money out of nowhere, and then I had a really dear friend contribute some to support me in my book for the Lemurian books, because they were very out there for people. People at that time were talking, weren't really open to speaking about spiritual paths. And so to have somebody believe in me and say, I know that you have something here, was so key to me. And so then after that 6 months, I changed my name to Faith. And I have been living it ever since then. And
now, and at what point did you move to Kauai, and why Kauai?
Oh, well.
To do with Lemuria.
Yes. Well, I didn't know that at the time, but in 1985, I came here very briefly. I had won a trip for work, and I said, let's stop over in Kauai because we were going to Maui. And I don't know what led me to do that, but as soon as I got here, I fell in love with this island. And in fact, when we had to leave, I actually cried. I begged my husband at the time to please, could we move there? And I knew it was home. I absolutely knew this was home. And he didn't want to. He was a city boy, and he's like, no. And I said, well, I'm going to move there someday. I know it. I'm going to move there. So it was always in my being. I actually, when I was in Chicago, and the winters there are very, very cold, I actually made a whole aloha room and tiki bar downstairs, and I had sun lamps out. I had really a complete visualization and a real feeling to it. I used to play Hawaiian records, and I always knew someday I would be there, but I didn't know when. And so eventually one day I did get the call. I went back to coaching, but this time I did play shops instead of workshops. I didn't like to work, so I wanted to play. And so I had
this pioneer. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Such a blessing to be able to speak with you right now and share all this, because you're such a profound experience. I think we can all relate to a lot of things here, so it's wonderful.
Well, it really
play shops.
Yeah, exactly. And people at the time were like, I would go into corporations because my company name at the time was New World Solutions, bringing the soul back in business. And they weren't used to that. Soul, what are you talking about? So it was, yes, it was definitely something that I got a lot of really weird looks and a lot of people that didn't understand what I was doing, but that was okay. By this time I knew from listening to my heart that, so that someday I would end up here. I just didn't know when, and my children were still growing up and so forth. But I kind of felt like I was, that movie Chocolat where she, like the north wind blew and she knew it was time to go. One day I woke up, it was a cold February morning, and I all of a sudden got the call, I'm supposed to move to California. And I was like, California? I always thought I would move to Kauai first. And so I was like, okay, are you sure? I mean, I had to really go in then. So my daughter got home from school and I said, okay, this is what I'm getting. Are you in? And she said, yes. She was just ready to graduate high school. And so we packed up just our cats and our clothes. Nothing else. I sold all of my furnishings, everything. And we got in the car and we started driving. And I didn't even know where we were going to live. And I just let Spirit lead me. And of all places, I ended up in Burbank, California, right next to the 5 freeway with all the smog, the 115 degrees heat. I had no idea. I was thinking I was going somewhere tropical, but it's the desert, okay? And so I really, this was another funny cosmic joke from Spirit saying, okay, now it's your turn to go out in the desert and really, really experience what that's like. So I actually left the coaching profession completely, and I ended up selling antiques. And it was such a very traumatic experience for me to be in that space that I actually got very sick. Very, very sick. In fact, I almost died. I got myxedema coma where everything swelled up. My thyroid stopped working and so forth. And finally, I knew I had to do something different. It was another wake-up call. And I get them all the time. And if you don't listen, the universe will speak louder and louder. And this was a really loud one. Like either you do something different now or you're not going to be here any longer. So I decided to take my daughter on vacation to Kauai and show her what it was like so she would know that I was safe. And I told her when we were on the trip that I would be moving here. And so I moved here 8808. Now at the time I didn't know that that was actually a Stargate opening, a portal opening, because the 8s were always really important in my life. They're a huge number because I was born in the 8th month. Okay, I have a life path number of 8, and in numerology, I'm a double 8. And so it's a very powerful, it's the number of infinity. And it was really important to me that I follow this guidance to move here on 8808. So I came here not knowing anybody.
And how were you receiving your guidance at the time? Was it through meditation or just walking in nature?
That's a good question, because by this time, during my sabbatical, having gone through that experience, I actually was introduced to a lot of very mystical experiences, and I began to read the Akashic Records and read energy. I always was very intuitive, but now I actually was in the Akashic Records all the time. So
you were hanging in there?
It was.
How is it like? What do you mean hanging out?
Basically,
for the people that do that, they know, but for most people, we don't.
Right. Well, the Akashic Records is really the soul records of all experiences. And so when you read the records, you're basically tapping into source energy, and you're being guided to, and some people hear it, some people see it, but I would hear it and see it, and I would get other signs. So I use all of my senses. And going back to some of these other mystical experiences that I had during this time, that was really gave me confirmation, because I want you to understand that when you say you want the name Faith, you really are saying, okay, bring it on, because I saw things and experienced things that actually took me, I went out of my mind, because it wasn't comprehensible to my mind. Mm-hmm. One time when I was going to give a speech, we were late, and we were rushing to go, and it was 4 lanes of traffic, and he missed the spot, and the people I was with were not really that aware spiritually at that time, and so we really didn't talk about a lot of things, but they kind of knew, because I couldn't really not share who I am, but I wasn't as vocal about it at the time. So we're driving, and a car pulls out as we're going 55 miles an hour right in front of us, and there was nowhere to go. All the lanes were full. And just then, everything started going into slow motion. It was like, and our car dematerialized and went on the other side of that car. And the guy's face, he was like in utter terror. I could remember his eyes just going, oh my God, I'm going to die. And instead, the cells in my body, okay, they started rearranging. You could feel them. It felt like really butterflies in the stomach, but all over the body. And it went very slow, and then it went fast again, really fast. And then I turned around to look at him, and he was just, as you can imagine, astonished. And the people that I was with, the one guy that was the driver, was hysterical, and I started laughing. I couldn't help it, because it was so incredible of an experience that if I hadn't gone through it, I would not have believed it. But because I did, I always say I don't know anything, but I only know what I have experienced. And this is what happened. And afterwards, when we got to the event,
safe.
Yes, I started crying. And the people I was with were so, they couldn't believe it either. I could believe it more than they could believe it. And so it was really hard on the people I was with. I've had many experiences like that. So now I lost all my new friends that I thought were friends, because that was too much for them. And I've lost a lot of friends over the years, because I could hear things and see things that they couldn't, or they're thinking something and then I say it, or they're thinking a song and I start humming it, and it just made them nervous and freaked them out. So I really started at that time to start becoming more and more like lowering my light vibration and pulling back and hiding out and becoming more of a hermit. And so by the time I got to Burbank, I stopped coaching. I didn't want to be in that world anymore. I was tired of people thinking I was always the weird one, or making fun of me, or, just whatever. I was just like, I don't want to explain myself anymore and all the things that happened. So I just kind of hid out, and that wasn't working. So obviously I almost died. So I was like, that's not going to work. So but during that time, there were 2 lifesavers. One, was Eckhart Tolle did his program with Oprah online, and he wrote in his book about the frequency holders. And as soon as I got to that part, I started crying, because I was like, oh my God, that's what I am. I'm a frequency holder, because I vibrate at a higher frequency than a lot of people, and I never understood it, and I thought everybody was like me. So when people weren't, I was confused. And so I'm very sensitive, and I couldn't be around a lot of different things, and so I always felt like I had to stay away from it. So it really was a problem for me, and so I got sick, and then I saw Ram Dass's program, and you just interviewed him, and he ultimately helped save my life, because he came out with this documentary, Fierce Grace, and I saw what he went through. And having been a spiritual teacher as well, I was really humbled, because I wasn't supposed to get sick. How did this happen to me? Like, all I've done is devote my life to the divine, and now I got sick, and I couldn't understand it. So, of course, it's perfect, because it got me here. Had I not been sick, had I not every single thing that happened to me in my life, and if I could say one thing that is the most profound message I've had from this life experience, is that our whole life experience is our spiritual path. There is no path. It all is. And every single thing that happened to me, the bankruptcy, the homelessness, the different experiences, have led me to where I'm at today. And so when I got to Kauai, I still didn't know that this was Lemuria. I got here, and I got a dog, and because I didn't know anybody on the island, and I really wanted a hiking partner, and so I got this dog, and one day she was very rambunctious. She knocked me over, and I herniated my disc, and I couldn't walk. And so it brought me into another episode of pain. This time I recognized, okay, there's something here for me. I recognized, wow, this is a good thing, because everything's a good thing. It's not just what we think is a good thing. So, but I didn't know at the time, and it really hurt a lot. And so I really was perplexed, because they have a little saying here about Mama Kauai, that if she loves you, she embraces you, and if she doesn't want you here, she has you leave. And I thought, oh no, am I being asked to leave because this happened to me? And so I was really concerned. So I went to the beach, and I always say that all our problems can be solved at the beach. Yeah. Okay, it's like that's where I go just to recognize who I am and really recenter. And so I was there, and this gal came up, and she was thinking of leaving that day. She was so distraught, and so she said she was going to go get a tattoo. And I said, oh, well, what is the tattoo going to say? And she said, have a little faith. And I said, oh, that's my name. And she started crying, and I held her, and I said, wow, I was thinking of leaving too, because I didn't know like anybody here. And she's like, you have to come up and live by me. And so another miracle happened. And so I ended up going up there, and then the woman that she rented from said, no, we don't have a place. I'm sorry. And so I said, all right, well, when you do, well, shortly thereafter, I got home that night. The next morning, she calls and she said, guess what? The people just came to me last night, and they're leaving, so I have a space for you. So it was divine intervention once again for me. And so then I went to a health food store, because by that time I changed my whole eating habits. I was really wanting to be healthy again. And I saw on the wall a little poster that had the number 8 on it. If you need healing, call 888-8088. So I called, and I went in to see him, and he said, I can help you. Without surgery, I can help you. And so I said, great. So at that point, he started helping me. And as he began to manipulate my spine and help me, my energy started coming back again. Because for 4 years of suppressing it, I had really very little of my energy here. And so my energy started coming back. And it was like one day the light went on, and he looked at me different, and he says, who are you? And he recognized me. He saw me again as the light of who I really am. Because years ago, I've been told, like, you know, Faith, you're like a 220-watt bulb in a 110-watt bulb society. And so I had dimmed my light so down so I could fit in with everybody. See, you know, I can have this experience too. But it really wasn't being authentic to who I was. So I ended up he said he'd like to do spiritual coaching with me. And I said, yes, I would. And I took him on. And ever since then, people have come from all over the world, and now holding the frequency of a very high magnitude. We're located right here in Kauai on a ley line, as I explained earlier. And behind us is a very magical place, much more than people recognize. It really is the true Shambhala. It is the city of light. And even though we can't see it because we're in a different dimension, it's there nonetheless. And I can see it, not all the time, but most of the time. And we live in a higher dimensional area here. It's very, people that have come here have had awakenings and remembrances of past existence and past lives. And they've had profound, amazing experiences that words can barely describe.
Is the Hindu temple also down there?
Yes, exactly. And that was another thing that I found very amazing, because I didn't know it was Lemuria. Well, this guy that helped me, he said, well, don't you know that Guru Deva wrote the Lemurian Scrolls? And I said, no. He says, yes, he wrote them at the Cocoa Pounds Hotel in the 70s. I said, that's where I stayed when I came the first time. So I went up to the Hindu temple, and there they have the largest 700-pound Lemurian seed crystal in the temple there. And I immediately said, oh my gosh, something really big is happening here. Like, all of a sudden, I really realized there is a reason for me to be here. And we're in a mandala house too that we'll see later, but it's shaped in the figure 8 also. And it was all prepared and planned out. So another thing that I could say, if we just relax and allow life to happen to us, magic happens. Because I couldn't have planned this out. It's so much better than I could have ever known to be able to be gifted. And so when I went to the temple and I went back, they give tours behind, they're building a new temple there. As soon as I walked back there, I completely remembered everything. My knees buckled. I almost fell to the ground. I started crying. I was with my friend, and I said, oh my goodness, this is where Genesis took place. This is the original Garden of Eden, the heart of Mu. No wonder I was so called here. I had a longing for this place. And now I have a Facebook page of Bridge Lemuria, and thousands of people have already found it because people are having this awakening of Lemuria. But Lemuria isn't just a place. It is a consciousness. It's a state of consciousness and awareness. It's the Christ consciousness. So that's why a lot of times people feel, since I have such a strong connection to Jesus, it's not Jesus the man, it's Jesus held the Christ consciousness. And that is basically what this vibration is. And once you are able to hold it, which I'm not able to all the time, I have the same problems. People say, oh, now you live in paradise, you never have any problems. That is absolutely not true. In fact, if anything, lots of things come up that you can't even imagine, that are very strange and weird and beautiful. But you learn how to respond with a knowingness that everything is in divine perfection.
Mm-hmm. How can we connect wherever we are around the world into this Lemurian place?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, you need to be ready, because a lot of people, well, they refer to me like the Oracle in the movie The Matrix, with Neo. And if you remember Neo, okay, he wanted to have a very fast spiritual awakening and working with Morpheus. And it required him laying there for a couple months in a fetal position. It is a process, and it's kind of like a metamorphosis, like the caterpillar coming into the butterfly. So you don't want to rush it. You want to be at the perfect timing and let life guide you, because life will bring you exactly what you need in that moment. It's the thing is to pay attention to it. For me, I didn't pay attention to the wake-up calls at first, and so they had to get louder and louder. So if you're getting the calling and you're getting the urging, it might be subtle at first, pay attention to it and then say, okay, am I willing to have the courage to act on it? Because I have to say something. You mentioned this in another one of your interviews with Carolyn Mace. She talked about the courage to be on a spiritual path, and it does. It requires tremendous courage. So it's not that I don't have fear, because I have great fear, okay? Tremendous fear. It's just that I don't give it any power any longer. just don't give it any power. And so therefore, I listen to, you know, when it comes in and I feel it and I allow it to go through me, but I just don't let it bother me. Like I had fear in coming to this interview because having not been given interview for 13 years now, I really had been, again, tired of always being the person to come out there and say all these experiences and getting a lot of backlash from it. So my ego was saying, oh, you don't need to do that, you know, it's not necessary. But this is a calling because you came here a year ago, and at that time it wasn't time for me, and I had to go in and listen and see what Spirit had to say, and when the time was right, I would know. And so about 3 months ago, I got the call, okay, it's time to do the Bridge to Lemuria page. And I said, okay, I'm ready to fully come out and share all of my experiences. And so...
Because your book on Lemuria is still out?
I actually never published it. It was, it's very interesting what happened with that. The book actually was too ahead of its time at that particular time, but now it started to get interest. So I have a feeling that it's going to be coming out soon, but it's going to look different now than I thought. And now people can really understand the message so much more, and they can really relate to it. And actually the children get it because I just had an 11-year-old read it, and she wants to illustrate it for me. And she's one of the crystal children, and she totally gets it. And she's like, I remember, and she knows. And so it's really exciting to be in a different space with it.
I would love to, and I'm sure a lot of people listening would love to know more about this Lemurian place. How does it feel? What it is like? What kind of resonance? I mean, tell us more.
Well, Lemuria, as you can imagine what heaven on earth is like, okay?
A little bit being here.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It is where everybody works in harmony. It's the true aloha spirit that when I wrote about the book originally, I wrote it when I was in Michigan, and I actually had the help of the divas and the fairies there, which at the time was very interesting to me because I'm an earth sign, I'm a Virgo, so I always connected with nature, but never to the point where, I mean, I can hear the trees speak, I can hear the voices. I don't always see them, but sometimes I do. But that's what Lemuria is like. You get a chance to experience everything you've always wanted to. In Lemuria, the days are filled with laughter and song. There's a lot of singing, and I also am a muse. Although I don't sing, I'm very musical, and I use music in my healing with people. And I also, too, I don't actually do healing. People heal themselves. All I'm doing is holding the light for them. So in Lemuria, okay, we hold the light for one another. And so therefore it's kind of like the movie Avatar, which part of it actually was filmed here. And that's the reason why. It was actually, part of it was filmed right about a mile from where I live. And because of the magic, it was like, imagine going to the trees. We have the Redrushka trees here, the only place in the entire United States that has Redrushka beads. And they're very sacred. Lemuria has heart-shaped leaves and plants from that you'd never see anywhere else. It has people who know we're one and would never harm one another because it's telepathic. You can't possibly have a harming thought because all it is love, because love is who we are. So it was completely free to be who you are. And that's the biggest thing for me in Kauai, is that I was just talking about someone earlier this morning, how wonderful it is to be here and be completely free to be me. I mean, we give hugs at the grocery store. We share fruit on the side of the road. My daughter came from another part of the country, and she said, Mom, they just have free fruit on the street. Doesn't everybody take it? I said, no. They only take what they want, and they leave the rest, because we know to share that there's enough to go around. It's not like there's anything that's mine. It's very open communally. And there's really hardly words to describe this. The 3D words are too small to describe the actual joy and experience. And that's another thing that I was going to say about doing it slowly. Joy is a vibration, okay, and it's a very high frequency. And if you go in the emotional scale, fear is a very low vibration. So when you have a lot of fear in your body, joy actually doesn't feel that good. It actually irritates the ego very much, and it doesn't like it. So this being in Hawaii amplifies it. So it really is about somebody that's willing to come and experience Lemuria if they come here physically or even in their own homes, to be able to open up, to let go of the lower vibration emotions so that the higher vibrations can come through. Because otherwise, you won't really fully experience it. And also, too, for the chakras being open, in order to open up the third eye to see, if you're really interested in seeing. And it's really funny because a lot of times when people come here, especially with me and my friends know me now. Now they accept me. I'm finally accepted. And partially it's because I accepted myself. Obviously, it's because I accepted myself. I finally felt at home. And so when I felt at home, I fully accepted myself and said, take me as I am. This is who I am. And so now I can say things like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Or I'm having this experience right now, and I'm seeing the city of light. And they say, oh my God, that's so fantastic. Or being able to be open to different dimensional experiences that are so amazing. And that's where we're going, everybody. I'm so excited because we're going to be, you know, like that movie What Dreams May Come, where you can slide in the painting and swim in the rainbow and ride on the unicorns and all of that. That's what Lemuria is. There's no boundaries. There's no limits to what you can experience, your imagination. So that would be the other step, I would say, is to let their imagination open up. Most of us have forgotten, and it really is about being a child again. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing about, in Lemuria, everybody's a child, so we play around a lot. We play. And it's really, the children know that that's what it takes to. And so a lot of my friends are children, and children and animals. They gravitate to me out of anywhere because they totally know that I can see them for who they are. And
so why did you have to tattoo it?
Okay, the Lemurian.
You can see it.
Yes, exactly.
We can see a little part of
out. Yes, the tattoo. The mermaid came first, and I remembered an experience that I had in Lemuria, that I was a mermaid. And I actually died trying to save some of the people because during the cataclysmic event there, many died. And there was a lot of healing that I needed to do around that, because even though I was a really, really happy child, and I was really way more mature for my age than, you know, a lot of children at that time, I always had kind of a little bit of a sadness, because I always felt that Earth was not supposed to be this way. It wasn't supposed to be where we were fighting or doing things, you know, harmful to each other. So I never really understood why people did what they did. And so I got the tattoo for a healing of over my heart, to let go of that experience and to live in the now. That was then, and I chose that, and I'm very happy that I did. And I have many remembrances now, and through a lot of my meditative journeys, I have gone to the halls of Amente and to before the Council of Nine, and had many conversations. And I actually, most of my friends are on the other side of the veil. That is really what I know, because they can communicate to me in the same language of light that I know, and that's why I was, you know, gifted the experience of having Jesus come to me as a light being to remind me who I am. And so I have ongoing dialogue and conversations with them, and know them. And I used to have this great yearning, and a lot of people I know, I've been hearing a lot from the Bridge to Lemuria page, people having a yearning to go home. And what I really wanted to say is home is in here. It's not a place. And so therefore, you don't have to go anywhere, although I can say the energies here or other places may amplify that within you. And if you're called to it, by all means, but the home is where the heart is. And so when you go in and you do that really deep healing, but you've got to be willing to go into that deep abyss. You've got to be willing to go into that deep pain. And I had to do that. I had to go in and heal, not just even this life, but all of my past lives, which are really not past life because they're all happening simultaneously. But I have remembrances of them happening now. So it kind of makes for an interesting situation when I'm having another dimensional experience, like, you know, while I'm sitting talking with somebody. So it's kind of like attempting to watch 2 TV programs at one time and stay focused and concentrate. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, and I don't always know how to navigate the world that easily. And so, but I've done pretty good. So I'm really happy with where my life is right now.
You got so much that you should see. I'm going to zoom in on Faith's eyes because later on, because you got so much light and they're beautiful. There's beautiful green. Blue, green, I don't know, yellow. It's good. It's a mix.
They change colors. They do, yes.
They do. Is there to kind of finish this amazing, beautiful, nourishing conversation, do you have a message or a call of action or something that would like to come through?
That's a really good question. Yes, action. I have a little acronym that I use oftentimes called AWARE. Awareness, willingness, action, realizes enlightenment. And the first step is being aware, okay? And you can't change anything or be different unless you're aware first. So the first is the introspection and going in and actually sitting with yourself and recognizing the truth of who you are. And that was the first thing in me owning it, to be still and know that I am. And now I can sit here and say to you today, I know I am God. And without a flinch, because I know it, I've lived it, I've experienced. So the first thing is to know, to sit and be aware and allow that energy to come in. And let me tell you, once you do that, then comes the willingness. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? And you really have to ask, because I have a lot of people that say, yes, I'm the most willing person in the world, except for if you don't have me change anything that I'm doing. And so I say, no, it really is going to require you being open to, you know, another experience. And so you might not go through the same experiences that I went through. In fact, you won't go through them, because every experience is customized for the soul's involvement. And for my soul's involvement, that's what it took. Going the bankrupt, going through all of the emotions that I went through and so forth. But for other people, they may not require that at all. And so just be open to whatever you're experiencing, and don't compare it to another person, because they're having a completely different experience. They cannot possibly know. But you want to face your own deepest fear. And for me, that's what I did. I was afraid of riding horses, because in one of my past lives, the horse stomped on my foot and broke my foot. And so I kept creating situations of horses doing these kind of things in my life. And so I had to face that and get on a horse and ride it. And one of my mentors was Eleanor Roosevelt, and no, I'm not that old, but going back to what she wrote and what she stood for is that whatever your greatest fear is, you must do. So I had to go in and take my greatest fear and then say, okay, I'm willing to do it. And then the next step is take action. Because like I said before, when I was coaching the first time, I said all those things, but I actually never really lived them. So now comes the integration, where you can actually say, I walk my talk. And in my practice as being a spiritual midwife and helping others birth themselves, okay, I open my home to them. They see me in my nightgown. They see me with no makeup. I don't wear much makeup. They, you know, it's
I've got a tattoo.
Right, exactly. I'm just open to who I am, and I swear. I make funny jokes. Well, at least I think they're funny. A lot of people would disagree, but. Or I just, I love life. I love to experience it. And so be willing to just allow yourself to fully be seen and allow yourself to be exposed. And that's basically what, once you do that, you're completely free. You're free. And I have to tell you, there's no better feeling in the world.
And it's time to free ourselves.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It really is time to free ourselves. And you know, the funny thing is, once you do it, you're going to say, wow, what was I afraid of all that time? What was I holding my back? But don't begrudge yourself for it. Like, everything's perfect if you're just saying, you know, oh, it took me so long to wake up. That's okay, because there's no time. So it's not take too long. You know, we have eternity for this beautiful quest of blossoming and evolving. And I'm still evolving all the time. Every day I'm learning something. But the learning part isn't really learning from the mind. It's unlearning. That's really the message. Be willing to unlearn everything you've learned. That's why on my sabbatical, okay, one of the things that the song was very important, I used to play over and over again, Carole King Tapestry, and I felt like someone had pulled my tapestry and it was unraveling, and it was like, my tapestry's unraveling, he's come to take me back. And it was like, come to take me back to who I am. And I'll tell you, the unraveling process is really interesting, and it can be really, really something else, but it is so worth it. I highly recommend it to everybody. And
there's also something that I would like to mention as I was hearing you speak about your own experiences, that I feel also we all have our awakening state. Like, it can be very different experience for many people. You have this rich and playful and experience, and it's okay if, you know, to not be there too. There's just different states.
Absolutely. You know, be wherever you're at. If you're sad, you're sad. I was sad for a long time, and I was angry for a long time. You know, I could not understand why my life was turning out the way it was. I questioned everything, and be willing to question everything and ask yourself, is this the truth? Because basically, in order to be the truth of who you are, you must be willing to stop telling yourself the lies. And you'd be surprised once you start going in how many lies we actually do tell ourselves. And so if you're willing to do that inner work, and of course not everybody is going to do it alone, that's what we're here for. And so there's many wonderful gifted people that can assist others in doing it. And I encourage that if that's what you're called to, but not everybody is called to do that either. So you may also be just open to, you know, hearing from the other side of the veil and your guides, or you may have somebody. The only value of working with someone like me that I see is that I can actually verbalize it into where someone can actually hear it, and then I can guide them and I can call them on it. So a lot of people actually, because I call them on the truth, they don't want to be around me because it's uncomfortable for them. So, you know, truth can be uncomfortable, and so you've got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone as well, but do it in small steps instead of feeling like, you know, I kind of had a diagram in my old book from A to Z, Z being at, you know, the complete, you know, nirvana, and A being stuck in fear. And it looks like the Grand Canyon in between, but it was the baby steps I took. I didn't do this overnight. This has been a gradual process of facing each and every one of my fears and being able to completely surrender. And actually, that's the card that we picked today. Before we did the interview, I pick a card each day, and it was the surrender card. And I do that every single morning before I get out of bed. I don't get up out of bed. Even if I have to go to the bathroom, I wait until I completely surrender to Source and say, take over, higher self. Because by the time you get out of bed, your ego already is engaged, and it once you start, gets you distracted, and what's on Facebook and this, that, whatever. So I do it before, and I do a daily practice every single day. And I never, ever give that up, because without that, it's too easy to get caught into the distractions of the world and so forth. So,
and earlier too, what I wanted, the part that I wanted to bring across is that we have different experience of enlightenment. So, for example, for me, I wouldn't be able to see angels or guides or the city of light. I don't have that right now, but I feel the beauty, and my heart is open, and I connect with nature, and it's just another experience, but it could be as rich and profound. And it's okay, you know, not to see or not to have this, because we feel it. There's all kind of senses that can sense beyond what we can see, that there is something special and beautiful. And just by looking at how, and that's why I feel Kauai is so special, because for people like me, we can see it through its beauty, and the beauty, frankly, is divine. And when the beauty is really present, our heart opens and we're connected to everything.
Exactly. And people, that's a really good point, because a lot of people feel like they've got to have some kind of validation externally, but going inside and being able to feel it, the feeling is it. The experience of it, that's it. It has nothing to do, like I said, all I'm using is words right now, but it really, the vibration is the joy and the love that you feel. And when you are in the nature, and that's why nature wanted to be a part of this today, because nature speaks. And if you're willing to listen, you're going to hear it in the way that's for you. Or music, or being able to do art. It comes in many different ways, and all paths are the path. If it's the one that's come into your life, that is the path for you. I mean, being spiritual, I don't even like the word spiritual anymore, because it gives a different connotation. People get very confused by it, and it's got a lot of emotions to it. It's just, how about if we just meet each other in the I am? I am you, and you are me, and we are God. And that is really the truth. And so it's accepting that we are God and being able to embody it. That's really the call to action, to be able to accept it, embody it. That's what an ascension is. And so we've got to be in our bodies. Many people get here onto this earth school and they want to leave their bodies. But actually we came to embody God in form. And so being able to accept that and experience it. And I had an experience the other day going into the ocean, where the day before had been really calm, and then the next day I didn't realize the tide came in because of the full moon. And so I was out there for about 20 minutes, and I felt the power of the ocean like I'd never felt it before. And I recognized at that moment, instead of being fearful, I said, this is how powerful I am. And it took me about 20 minutes to get in to shore. And during that time, I really surrendered to this power. And I said, oh my goodness, that is just a small fraction of the power that we are. And that is the ocean. Imagine how powerful we are. And with that, my whole body just absolutely
melted.
Yes, melted. And thankfully we have the wonderful sands in Kauai that's all filled with crystal, and it really helps ground, and actually we are crystals. That's another thing I wanted to say. We are crystals, and people don't realize that the whole earth is a crystal. And so we're transmitters and we're receivers. And so when you learn to receive, and you can open up your pineal gland, your crown chakra, and open up all the chakras and receive that energy and allow it to come through, you will be able to experience even more and more. But be happy for where you're at, because for many years I didn't. And I have to say, you know, be careful what you ask for, because sometimes the experiences are really a little overwhelming, even for me. And so I have to stay very grounded when I'm having some of these experiences.
Faith, this was delicious. I'll have to come back and do another part. I promise. We had to get I know Faith for quite some time now, and but we had to get this overall story, and then we'll dig into some different topics. Yes?
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed it. You really made it very, very special. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, my beautiful co-creators, for watching, for sharing these videos. We send you much love, much beautiful light coming from here. I don't know if you can feel it. I hope you can.
Yes, and much aloha.
Much aloha. Bye.